Hello students, happy Monday and happy November. Doesn't seem like it should be November already. I hope you're all having a wonderful day. Today for our Grammar Monday activity, we are going to be looking at semicolons versus commas. So down here you can see this is a semicolon, a comma, and a colon. We are going to look at all three today. So which punctuation marks should I use? Being able to use the right punctuation mark is really important. It's what makes you a good writer. It's what makes your writing easy to understand, and that's your goal, to be able to write a functioning sentence and a functioning paragraph. So knowing which punctuation to apply within sentences can be confusing. However, there are rules in place that are made to be followed, especially with academic writing. Putting a comma between two independent clauses will confuse your readers and make your work frustrating to read. And on the other hand, a well-placed semicolon can add nuance to any kind of writing. So when to use a comma? Commas are the most frequently used and abused punctuation mark in most kinds of writing. So the reason for this is that they have so many uses and so many rules that it can be hard to keep track of them all. So we're going to go ahead and look at some of those rules today. So you use commas to list items or short phrases. So the example, I bought bread, comma, cheese, comma, and pickles at the grocery store. You also use commas to separate long independent clauses when conjunctions connect them. So astronomers have known about the positions of stars for centuries, comma, but is a conjunction. They didn't understand that the earth revolves around the sun. Also, use a comma after an introductory phrase. In preparation for the next convention, comma, the representative studied up on the most important issues. And you also use a comma to separate a parenthetical phrase or interrupter. So all doctors, comma, if they care about their patients, comma, are concerned with good office hygiene. More on commas. So comma splice. Do not use a comma to divide two independent clauses without a conjunction. So here we see, incorrect, thousands of protesters showed up on the streets, comma, they were shouting and carrying large posters. This is technically a run-on sentence. Correct, thousands of protesters showed up on the streets, semicolon, they were shouting and carrying large posters. You can also end the sentence there and start a new one. And combining lengthy phrases. Using commas with compound sentences or to separate clauses with other commas can cause confusion. Use a semicolon. Some useful subjects are English, comma, which is an international language, comma, math, comma, which is used in all domains of sciences and social sciences, comma, and philosophy, comma, which underpins many other areas of study. That is a really confusing sentence. It was even hard to read. Correct. Some useful subjects are English, comma, which is an international language, semicolon, math, comma, which is used in all sciences and social sciences, semicolon, and philosophy, comma, which underpins many other areas of study. So those semicolons are used really to distinguish where a new idea is starting. When to use a colon. A colon is used to make lists and tell the reader, this is what I mean. The colon should not be used often in most kinds of writing unless there are extensive lists involved. The rules of the colon are strict but fairly easy to memorize. So, use a colon to introduce an item or series of items. Humans use five major senses, colon, sight, hearing, smell, taste, and touch. You also use a colon to separate independent clauses when the second clause / sentence illustrates, explains, paraphrases, or expands on the first. So our example here, Martha realized that her worst fear was coming true, colon, her son was being sent to war. And then our last one, to follow the salutation in a business letter or more formal letter. So, to the Central Valley Committee chairman, colon, and then a business letter would start. So more tips for using colons. Do not capitalize the first word after the colon unless it is a proper noun, is part of a quote, or is the first in a series of sentences. Incorrect. I have 3 desires, colon, to eat, sleep, and work. That T in that to does not need to be capitalized, which you can see in the correct example. You also, when a quotation contains multiple sentences, many writers prefer to introduce it with a colon rather than a comma. So you can see that example there. In chapter 3, the author explains his theory, colon. Then it jumps into the quotation. A complete sentence after the colon is not necessary, or word or phrase is also fine. So there's one mantra that can sum up our position towards climate change, urgent action. Common mistake. So separating two clauses that have equal rank or unrelated information is incorrect. In our example, we see the incorrect version. Sarah and her friends love spending time on the mountain, nature always held a special meaning for them. Those are two different sentences, so that would be the case when we would use a semicolon. So correct. Sarah and her friends love spending time on the mountain, nature always held a special meaning for them. Overusing the colon. The colon is a powerful punctuation mark and should be used sparingly. Think of it as a stop sign that calls the reader's attention, says, hey, pay attention to this. This is very important. If there are too many stop signs on a street, you won't be able to drive very smoothly or quickly, and that's the same effect colons can have upon readers. Because colons are so attention-grabbing, they can clearly indicate which information is important. For this reason, many authors use colons to introduce their main argument or supporting evidence. All right, now on to semicolons. A semicolon is used to separate two ideas, which are two independent clauses that are closely related. They can also be used when listing complex ideas or phrases that use commas within them. Essentially, a semicolon is like a comma with more meaning or a colon with more flexibility. So our rules we see at the bottom. You can use a semicolon to join two or more ideas in a sentence when their ideas are given equal position or rank. Example, the universe is always called to human beings, There could be no more final frontier than space. Also use a semicolon to join two independent clauses connected by conjunctive adverbs or transitional phrases. Example, Sam thought David was inviting him to the picnic to enjoy a nice day out, As it turns out, David was planning a surprise birthday. Use a semicolon to present items in a list or series if there are commas between the items or if the ideas are strongly related and complex. Example, our family members came all the way from Denver, Colorado, Rochester, Minnesota, and even Paris, France. To connect independent clauses joined by a coordinating conjunction if the clauses are already punctuated with commas or if they are lengthy. Example, my main research objective is to isolate the cause of the disease as well as to contribute the existing literature, For this will bring an end to starvation across the continent, create new study designs related to the that's a scientific word that I can't pronounce, and change the very paradigm of my research field. Using a semicolon instead of a comma. Incorrect. The specimens were treated properly, however, they were not stored properly. That would technically be a run-on. Correct. The specimens were treated properly, however, they were not stored properly. The conjunctive adverb, however, shows a connection between the two independent clauses. Do not use a comma to connect two independent clauses without a coordinating conjunction, and, but, or, nor, for, etc. Incorrect. The sun is wonderful, it produces light, which plants need to survive, it gives us warmth, which is useful for most life, and it makes a sad day happier, which is a positive trait. Holy cow, that is a hard no for me. Correct. The sun is wonderful, it produces light, which plants need to survive, it gives us warmth, which is useful for most life, and it makes a sad day happier, which is obviously a positive trait. Choose punctuation with context and audience in mind. As with any technical decisions regarding writing, when choosing which punctuation marks to use and apply consistently, it is a good idea to consider your audience and the context for your work. For instance, researchers looking to publish in journals should read articles from the journals they are targeting to see which punctuation marks are used most by authors in that journal. The same rule applies to any newspaper, magazine, or periodical for which your writing is intended. So let's look at our Google form for today. So semicolon versus comma, Grammar Monday 7. Directions: decide if each blank needs a semicolon or comma and mark the correct option. You've got 10 here. Okay, use the examples provided on the Google Slides, and I'll go ahead and go through 2 more slides. So this is available for you on Google Classroom. You can use these little examples here to help you, and also this is available for you. So use those guys, get the Google form done. It's worth 10 points graded on accuracy, and have a wonderful day. Please let me know if you have any questions.